Hey everyone! Have you ever wondered what it would be like to wake up alone on a spaceship destined for a new world, only to find that you're not really ready for the journey? Stick around, because today's story is one wild ride through space, heartache, and hope. Welcome back to Movie Recaps, the place where we dive deep into the best and sometimes most heartbreaking films out there. I'm Doolin, and today, we're unpacking the 2016 sci-fi romance drama, Passengers. Whether you're a die-hard fan or watching for the first time, you're in for an unforgettable journey. Just a heads up, there are plenty of spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen it yet, you might want to pause this video now. Let's set the stage. The interstellar spaceship Avalon is cruising through the vast expanse of space, headed for a colonized world known as Homestead 2. The ship, completely empty, on autopilot, carrying 258 crew members and 5,000 passengers in deep hibernation. It's as quiet as a graveyard out there. Then, out of nowhere, disaster strikes. The ship glides through an asteroid belt, which weakens its shields. Although power is diverted to bolster the main shield, a giant asteroid collides with Avalon, causing a cascade of malfunctions. In the midst of the chaos, the ship begins self-reparations, and bam! One of the hibernation pods activates unexpectedly. That's when we meet Jim Preston, a mechanical engineer whose pod opens and kicks him into life. The onboard system tells him he's been asleep for 120 years, and that Homestead 2 is a mere 4 months away. Imagine waking up from a century-long nap, only to find yourself in a luxury spaceship with endless amenities waiting to be enjoyed. Jim's excitement quickly turns to confusion when he receives instructions about his ID band, his cabin, and the onboard activities. Eager to explore, he leads his cabin and steps into an automated class meant for groups, only to discover he's the only one there. The hologram explains Earth has become overpopulated, overpriced, and overrated, and tells him to hold his questions. But Jim can't help asking why no one else is awake. Frustrated, he sets off in search of a real human connection. He roams the main concourse of the ship, but it's eerily empty. An automated information desk sends him on a wild goose chase, from talking to a steward to trying to reach the captain. Even a peek at the bridge confirms it. The crew is still in slumber. Desperate for answers, Jim heads to the observatory, where a shocking realization hits him. The ship is actually 90 years from Homestead 2. Panicking, Jim scrambles back to the concourse and sends a message to Earth. Hoping to get some guidance. The catch? The reply would take approximately 55 years. Needless to say, Jim's devastated. With his loneliness mounting, Jim drifts to the ship's bar, where he encounters another person. But here's the twist. When he goes to order a drink, he discovers that this person is actually an android named Arthur. Jim tries to make sense of it all, but even Arthur is puzzled by the surreal circumstances. The next day, things get a little more bizarre. Jim wakes up in his cabin and heads to the cantina, only to find that most items are reserved for gold-class passengers. After grabbing a plain coffee, he sets out to fix his hibernation chamber. Gathering tools and desperately trying to get back to sleep, he soon realizes nothing's working. In a bid to find some respite, he even breaks into the crew's hibernation quarters. But that's another dead end. As malfunctions ripple throughout the ship, Jim keeps returning to the bar to talk with Arthur. On the advice of his android friend, he breaks into one of the gold-class rooms to indulge in the ship's finer amenities: restaurants, games, entertainment. But no matter how much he enjoys these pleasures, his misery grows as the loneliness overwhelms him. One day, after a heavy bout of drinking, Jim ends up near the hibernation pods again. While wandering, he stumbles upon an airlock with spacesuits for spacewalks. Suiting up, he heads out and is absolutely mesmerized by the view of space, a moment of serene beauty that is bittersweet in its solitude. Floating there, he feels utterly alone. After a near-fatal moment when he almost ends it all at the airlock, fate delivers him a twist of destiny. In one of the pods, he's drawn to a sleeping woman named Aurora. Intrigued, Jim searches for her files, listens to her recorded passenger interview, and quickly becomes enamored with her. Later, he's seen sitting by her pod, absorbing her words, and back at the bar, discussing her work with Arthur. The irony isn't lost on him. He set out for a better life on a new planet, only to wake up early and find his perfect match just out of reach. Days pass, and Jim's obsession with Aurora deepens. He contemplates waking her up, but the moral quandary looms large. If he wakes her, she'll be trapped with him, destined to endure a life of isolation. Initially, he resists, but loneliness wins over. And one day, he makes the fateful decision. He activates her pod. Aurora wakes up, much like Jim did, and they finally meet in the main concourse, confused and scared. Jim tells her they're the only ones awake and leads her to the observatory, explaining that he has no way of reaching the crew or command sections. Her reaction is one of horror. She wants nothing more than to get back into her pod, but Jim breaks the harsh truth. There's no special equipment to reinitiate hibernation. They're stranded. After urging Aurora to rest, Jim retreats to the bar, heavy with regret, and silently begs Arthur to keep his secret. The next day, as Aurora adjusts to her new reality, she questions the automated info desk about the hibernation pods, and the two share breakfast, albeit with a few glitches along the way. Aurora, determined and resourceful, embarks on a quest to fix the pods by combing through the infirmary, research documents, and even the crew's hibernation quarters. Meanwhile, Jim notices more malfunctions around the ship. Over time, Aurora's frustration turns into introspection. She jogs, writes, and swims, increasingly aware of her life on Avalon. She even sits down to interview Jim about his dreams of starting fresh on the new world, hearing him talk about building a life and becoming somebody. Later, in the observatory, Aurora reveals her own motivation. Unlike the other passengers, she has a round-trip ticket. Her plan was to live on Homestead 2 for a year, then return to Earth as the first journalist to document such a journey. The greatest story ever, in her words. As the pair's feelings for each other deepen, Jim tries everything to cheer Aurora up. Dancing, cinema trips, even a session at the basketball court. A romantic date at the bar, and a heartfelt miniaturized Chrysler building crafted by Jim speak volumes of their emerging bond. Their relationship takes a daring turn when, during a memorable spacewalk, the magnets on their boots are switched off, letting them float freely together in space, sealing their connection with an instant kiss before retreating to Jim's cabin. Life on the ship begins to form a new normal, Aurora moving into Jim's cabin, writing about their experiences, sharing intimate moments, jogging, eating, and even exploring the ship together. Jim finds solace in the hydroponics bay, regularly bringing her fresh flowers, symbolizing hope amid endless space. But just when things seem to be settling, trouble strikes again. The ship passes by a red giant star, and during Aurora's birthday celebrations, a lavish night at a restaurant and the bar, a devastating secret surfaces. While Jim is preparing a ring in the washroom, the ever-observant Arthur inadvertently reveals that Jim woke Aurora up intentionally. In a flood of emotion, Aurora confronts him, furious and panicked. Her belongings vanish, and even when Jim tries to reach her in the cantina, she flees like a ghost. One fateful night, Aurora storms into Jim's cabin and attacks him in a fit of rage. Over the comm, Jim pleads, explaining he's fallen in love with her, but the betrayal feels too deep for Aurora to forgive. Just as the tension peaks, another malfunction strikes. The ship suffers a critical error, shutting down the main command. In the midst of the chaos, as Jim ascends a malfunctioning elevator, Aurora notices a tree that Jim planted, a symbol of his hope. Meanwhile, the cantina's food dispenser malfunctions, and the deck chief's voice echoes over the comms, drawing the attention of Gus Mancuso. When they meet him, he's baffled by the triple pod failure and leads them to the bridge to perform a manual check. Things take a dire turn when a robot nearly injures them, and Mancuso, after checking the data, finds Jim's actions regarding Aurora's pod morally disturbing. Despite his best efforts, no one can fix the malfunctioning pods. Aurora, now deeply conflicted, watches as Mancuso grows ill and eventually coughs up blood on his way to rest. Late that night, as Aurora goes for a swim, a sudden gravity loss strikes the ship, almost causing her to drown. After a tense reset of the gravity drive and a frantic search for Mancuso, Jim and Aurora uncover a critical error that began 2 years prior, a catastrophic failure threatening to strand the ship for good. With Mancuso fading fast, they rush him to the infirmary, where he eventually passes away after handing Jim his ID bracelet. Charging them with the monumental task of fixing the ship, chaos escalates. The ship's lights flash red, and it shakes violently as Jim and Aurora race to engineering. They face yet another gravity drive failure and a malfunctioning Arthur, whom Jim deactivates. In engineering, an asteroid breach nearly sucks Aurora into space. Jim manages to seal the breach, but not before discovering that the asteroid has damaged the reactor control computer. After replacing the part, the reactor still fails to vent properly. Determined, Jim decides to manually open the vent door from outside the ship. At the airlock, with tension thick in the air, Jim hands Aurora Mancuso's bracelet as a sign of both hope and fear. As Aurora helps him with his suit, she implores him to come back. She simply can't live without him. Back at the reactor room, with temperatures soaring, a reactor bolt injures Aurora as Jim approaches the vent door. Knowing what must be done, Jim holds the door open manually, letting the reactor vent successfully. But the fumes push him away, breaking his tether and causing his suit's pressure to drop. Aurora races to save him by fetching another suit, and after a heartfelt apology and reconciliation, she drags him to the infirmary, overriding protocols with Mancuso's bracelet and reviving him. After a flurry of repairs, including fixing Arthur and giving Gus Mancuso a proper space burial, Jim finds a way to reactivate the hibernation pod. But Aurora, embracing their life together on Avalon, decides to stay awake. In a culminating act of love, Jim proposes, and together they choose to live out the rest of their days on the ship. Finally, 88 years later, the Avalon arrives at Homestead 2. The remaining crew awakens to find the ship transformed by its long journey, and a heartfelt message from Aurora retells the unforgettable saga of love, loneliness, and survival, etched into the very soul of the ship. And there you have it, the epic, bittersweet journey of passengers. What do you think of Jim and Aurora's story? Did you feel the heartbreak and hope that defined their lives? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more movie recaps just like this one. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next adventure in cinema.